There's some very easy technical stuff you can do. You create your IP address, dynamically, so you're never touching it. You put it all back on the client, make them fill something out so it's automatically generated. Use a firewall, obviously, so you're, making connections only to your target. All those things take time. So,
another one here that isn't on this slide, but we have some smaller clients who actually have a dynamic IP address. So they might fill a form out today for a pen test 6 weeks from now. And you're like, all right, great. And then you'll run that scan and it'll find weird things that maybe you weren't expecting from that client, and you'll write up the report and life is good, and you'll send them the report and they'll be like, wow.
Yeah, you're owning some XP no service pack box, and you're like, this is sweet.
This is sweet. You're like, wow, these guys are great. And you give them the report, they're like, that's not even our stuff. And you're like, oh, I didn't fat finger it, right? Maybe we're copy and pasting, or we like to just set up like a little notepad files with IPs and URLs. Well, if they have a dynamic IP, if they don't, so now what we have to do is like the day we're going to run the scan, like call up that client back, is your IP still this IP address, which you've just, obviously sounded the alarm bells that you're about to do your thing.
Which should be another issue. Trying to get a client to give you an IP address is way more difficult than you would think.
Yeah.
Issue 7!
So,
are you Bulgarian or?
All right. There's all kinds of issues with expectations, right? This runs a gamut. Especially one of the first areas that we ran into this was with the concept of deadlines. People who are maybe not, maybe they know the pen testing process, but from a business standpoint, again, going back to the first one where we deal with budgets, you can't spend, an infinite amount of time doing a pen test and gathering information against a target. They're worried more about the bottom line. So deadlines become this kind of huge role. These internal expectations, and then trying to work through this issue with, your management process, kind of becomes a really big deal, right? So. In-house issues?
Yeah, so some in-house issues, like you have to know or educate hopefully before they talk, like any sales guys or anybody who's going to talk to a potential client. So, we think we have a pretty good wrangle on like the guys who do sales, the guys and gals who do sales on different levels of scans or pen tests, how long those are going to take, what the report's going to look like, sanitizing a sample report and getting that out to a potential client, and life is good. But what I would urge you to do is anybody in the company could talk to a potential client and say all sorts of goofy things. So it might be a manager, it might be a consultant, might be a financial person in the company that, their uncle owns a company and promises the moon on a pen test or something. Which, it's obviously really easy the first time you talk to that person, say, no, that's not really what we do. But a little bit of education up front, just internally, will help out. So, right. We've had all sorts of things like, huge ranges that somebody has promised to be scanned in a matter of, minutes or hours, which just isn't realistic to even get started.
Yeah.
And the other one is, like we talked about earlier, wanting more of a vulnerability assessment than a pen test is, walking right up to the line where, even, you have the Metasploit module locked and loaded and ready to fire, and it'll give you a reverse shell, but, the rules of engagement say they actually want no actual exploitation. So you can show them, well, if we would have pushed this button, it would have done something, which, that doesn't strike home with them at all. So.
All right. I'm beginning to think Mike was a bad idea. All right. So the flip side of that, so the last slide was all about kind of your internal expectations, especially if you're from a company that includes multiple levels. That tends to blow up very quickly. You need to work and manage that process of whether or not you have salespeople out in the field who are selling for you. You need people that understand that process, whether or not you have a business manager or somebody that's all about the bottom line. They need to understand that process and why something like information gathering is important. So the other side of that is the expectations you will have from your client. And we get a lot of stuff like, okay, so I know you just owned the box last week and you totally destroyed us, but now we fixed XYZ. Can you just give us a quick rescan, right? Which, again, defeats the purpose of the pen test. And probably another one of our favorites is we get a lot of consultants, or not consultants, but the actual clients that will actually call us and say, we're 24 hours or 48 hours into a pen test, and they'll be like, hey, how's the pen test going? Can you give me an update on the
client?
test?
Yeah, the client. Yeah, we want to know how it's going. Can you give us a quick summary of the results?
We haven't even generated a report. I mean, sometimes we're not even done with the actual scanning of it, so obviously that's an issue to try and deal with.
Yeah, and another one is we'll work with clients who actually outsource most of their web app stuff. So if there's any issues down the road, then we end up talking with a lot of developers from other companies that built the web application. So a funny true story is we actually had a company called me. I gave my cell phone, because that's the easiest way to contact me. They said, I hope it's okay, but I gave that third-party development company your cell phone in case they had any questions directly. I'm like, oh boy. And no shit, I'm sitting in my garage having a beer on like a Friday afternoon at 4:30 and my phone rings, and it like I'm the kind of guy, like if it's an unknown number, like if it says unknown or if it's a number I don't know, I'll actually answer it. It's kind of sadistic and fun for me. So I opened the beer. I opened my phone and say, this is Josh and blah, blah, blah. And it was this third-party company with like 4 guys just foaming at the mouth around a speakerphone that wanted to talk about this vulnerability I'd found in their web application. So I'm like, okay. So I'm like trying to open a beer and talk on the phone. I'm like, trying to like keep the beer sound down and talk to these people. So that's client expectations are, I'm more than happy to talk to your third-party vendor. You probably shouldn't give them my cell phone number until I tell you it's okay. So.
Number 9.
Okay. So I know a lot of us are penetration testers in this room, or you're thinking about being a penetration tester in this room, and so everyone starts at a certain level, right? I guess what I want to say here is I know of very few penetration testers that will write their own custom exploits for everything they do, right? There's lots of good resources. We all know them out on the web, but I also know it's very easy to go out and grab stuff from the community, and if you don't know how to audit shellcode and you don't know how to audit the exploits that you're looking at, right? Don't be surprised if you end up with giving away an extra shell when you're using someone's work. So be a little careful here. We've hit this issue ourselves. So.
And I had to check to see if what the shellcode did actually did what you thought it was going to do. And if it did something you weren't, then how do you contact that bank or that insurance company or that school district and say, oh, by the way, I know we weren't supposed to do any actual exploitation, but this shell has spawned up, and here's how you should log in immediately and take care of it. I know it's 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, but yeah.
All right. So
this next issue is number 10.
So this was another one from early on, like the fat fingers that I did myself, which was really fun.
This is like the first week on the job.
Yeah. So I thought I was uber elite and wrote this whois reverse lookup script and let it rip, and it melted down the switches in the ISP, and we ended up getting a bunch of our stuff banned, and it was not a fun phone call to make. So before you start actually deploying your own work, which kind of goes back to the slide we just had, try to know what you're doing.
That's quick. I
that
haven't
was a quick
prepared
one.
this one yet. 11.
So this one is actually one of Josh's early fails, I guess.
Yeah.
This is all about fails.
Yeah, like I'm a huge burp fanboy. Like DAF has done a great job developing that tool, and I was using it, and life was great. And I'd actually used it for 8 weeks. And for all you burp users, in the Spider tool, it's Peter Wiener from Wienerville, Wisconsin, with the Social Security number, like basically an auto form submitter. And I had never ever looked through the actual config of the Spider. I just I changed some of the parameters on threads and some of those things, but never actually looked to see what values it was using. So I think that's what DAF was actually banking on, was to put people in this situation. So we were on the job. We had been on this, not the same job, but been doing pen tests for like 8 or 10 weeks, and a company CEO calls us and wants to know why Peter Wiener has made like 400 form submissions and how classless that was. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I couldn't argue. I'm like, yeah, I probably should. Peter Wiener, yeah, you got me there. So
lesson learned.
So like anybody else, it's Peter Winter now. I mean, I just from Winterville, Wisconsin. You know, I didn't want to like. Yeah. Daft did? Daft didn't know that mean. Yeah, it said.
That makes it
even
better.
in the Queen's English, that doesn't mean wang. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah, so that was a good one. So like when you load up a tool, especially if it's a tool I knew pretty well or know pretty well, but look through those. So
12.
Your shirt's coming off, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this one is obviously one you need to be a little careful of. People tend to recycle a lot of data. I think this is pretty self-evident to everybody in this room, but the people you're going to go back and work with, or the people you're going to start a company with, they don't always get this point. So when it comes time for a machine to get recycled or something to be turned over and cash out a little bit of equity on, it's not worth it. All right. In this one, you can also be a little bit careful here too, folks. I would just tell you when you talk about your reports, right? Most of you will probably run your pen testing from a box or 2 boxes or a dozen boxes or whatever it is. Those particular things, not only do you not want them on eBay, right? Forensically, you don't want them on eBay, but the reports that you generate each time, you have to be a little careful, obviously, right? Sensitive stuff. Many of you probably running around, using a great distro like Backtrack or something, but you're running a lot of hacker processes, and if you go back to some of the stuff we just talked about, you're downloading exploits. Right, just be careful. That's all I'm saying. And
another one on the reporting side is something that a client always wants to see, before they sign up is, well, what's a sample report look like? You wouldn't imagine. I mean, it's hard to imagine the amount of work it takes to sanitize a report and actually have that report still maybe show something that you could do. So we actually went through like 3 or 4 iterations of a sample pen test report. Still with the fancy graphs and the pie charts and all the network stuff and the web stuff, but something that we could show a potential client that says, here's the kind of stuff you're going to get, without them saying like, oh, that's the law firm downtown, or Yeah. So I mean, it's actually way more work than it's worth. I mean, short of like using the scratch out tool in Paint,
which we all love Paint.
Oh, what do you like that mic not on?
Nope. Oh, number 13.
AV guys love you.
So I've been on both sides of this before I came back to academics, before I started the penetration testing company and became a consultant, pen testing consultant. I was on the defensive side of things. And so this one touches home to me a lot because I was very protective of my networks as a sysadmin, especially as a security labeled sysadmin, right? And so this one you just got to be careful how you present it, but sometimes that's the way it goes.
Yeah, and this one, something really great, I think, for most pen testing firms is to provide some sort of feedback above and beyond the report. I mean, the report is the exhaustive, go-to resource at many different levels on that organization. The CEO can read it, the manager can read it, the developers or the network guys can read it. But giving those people the green light and saying, if you want to discuss your reports or your findings, let's do that. And I think that's a great thing. But that's also the time you get the sysadmin or the developer just with sharpened elbows on the other side of the phone, ready to take you down. I mean, that's just part of it.